The Golden Thread by Norman Macleod, from a rare Collectors of Lamplighter series. Chapter 6. The Return Home. Not long after this strange adventure, they reached a rising ground from which a magnificent view burst upon them. Below there was a large lake, surrounded by wooded hills, above which rose noble rocks fringed with stately pines and higher ranges of mountains beyond, some of whose summits were covered with snow that glittered like purest alabaster in the azure blue of the sky. Philip gave a cry of joy, for he saw the house of one of his father's foresters, which he had once visited with his father. "Wolf, Wolf!" he exclaimed. "Look yonder! That is the house of Dark-Eye, the forester. We are safe!" And the thread was leading straight down into the very direction which they wished. Dark-Eye's house was built on a small green island in the lake. The island was like a little fort, for on every side of the rocks descended like a wall. It could be only approached by a boat, which Dark-Eye kept in the island, and then by a narrow stair cut out of the rock at a landing place. No robbers could thus get near it, and Dark-Eye was there to give shelter to travelers and to help any of the poor who had to pass that way. The thread led down to the shore. They forgot their fatigue and ran down till they reached the ferry. "Boat ahoy!" shouted Philip. By and by the two boys were seen running out of the cottage, and after looking cautiously at those who were calling for the boat, they rowed off and soon were at the shore, where stood Philip with his gold belt, and Wolf in his rough skins. "Olaf, Torquil, don't you remember me?" asked Philip, looking at his old friends. The boys looked astonished as they recognized the young prince, and received him joyfully into their boat, he holding by the thread, which seemed to cross the ferry towards the cottage. How many questions were mutually put and answered in a few minutes. They told him how their father was at home, and how he had lately seen the king, and how the king was anxiously looking for Philip's return, and how glad all in the island would be to see him. And the younger boy, Torquil, told him how they had now a tame otter that fished in the lake, and a fine golden eagle which they had got young in her nest, that also lived on the island with them, and how their mother had got another baby since he had been there, and how happy they all were, and so on, until they arrived at the island, and there was old Dark-Eye himself, waiting to receive them. And when he saw who was in the boat, he ran down the stone steps, and grasped the young prince's hand, and drew him to his heart. "Welcome, welcome," said he. "I knew you had been in the forest, but your father would not tell me anything more about you. He only said that he longed for your coming. But who is this?" asked Dark-Eye, pointing to Wolf. "A friend of mine," said Philip, with a smile. "My name is Wolf," grunted the swineherd. "I think I have seen him before." "But no." "What?" "Yes," said Dark-Eye, examining him, then added, as if he had discovered some old acquaintance, "Surely I have seen him. Tell me, my fine fellow, did you—" It was evident Dark-Eye had seen Wolf killing his game, or in some affray with the robbers. Wolf looked sternly at Dark-Eye, then at Philip, but said nothing. "Oh, Dark-Eye, do not trouble poor Wolf," said Philip, "but let him into the cottage. And come you with me, as I wish to tell you all that has happened to me during these few days." So while the boys took Wolf to the cottage, and food was being prepared, Philip told Dark-Eye all his adventures, and you would have been sure that the forester was hearing something which surprised and interested him wonderfully had you seen his face, and how he sometimes laughed, or knit his brows and looked angry, or sad and solemn, or sprung to his feet from the rock on which he was sitting beside Philip. When Philip came to speak about the old woman and her daughter, "Ah," said Dark-Eye, "there are not worse people in that wicked country. They say that the old woman is a witch of some kind, but whether she poisons travelers or drowns them, I know not. No doubt she is in league with Malden the robber, and would have robbed you or kept you fast in some way or other till you were handed over to him. You were right, my prince, in all you did. The only way of being delivered from temptation is to be brave, and do what is right, come what may." Then, grasping Philip by the hand, he led him back to the cottage. There Dark-Eye's wife received him like a mother, and all the children gathered round him in surprise and admiration. He looked so brave and lovely. One of the walls of the cottage was reared on the edge of the rock, so that it seemed a continuation of it, and to rise up from the deep waters of the lake. The boys were thus able to often fish with a long line out of the window. A winding stair led to a lookout on the roof, from which the whole island, called the Green Island of the lake, could be seen. It was about a mile or more in circumference, and was dotted all over with the cottages of other foresters and king's huntsmen, each surrounded with clumps of trees. through which the curling smoke from the chimneys might be seen ascending. There were everywhere beautifully kept gardens with fruits and flowers and beehives, and fields too with their crops. On the green knolls and in the little valleys might be seen the cows and sheep, while flocks of goats browsed among ivy-covered rocks. In the middle of the island was a little shallow lake, beside which the otter had his house among the rocks, and there the eagles also lived. All the children on the island were the best of friends, and they played together and sailed their boats on the little lake, and every day met in the house of one of the foresters to learn their lessons. And on Sunday, as they were very far away from any church, old Dark-Eye used to read the good book to them, and to worship with them, and did all he could to make them love God and one another. There was also in the island a house, where by the king's orders all poor travellers could find refuge and refreshment, and it was a great pleasure to the boys and girls to visit them, and if they were sick and confined to bed, to attend to their wants. If the stranger had any children, the young islanders always shared their sports with them, and nothing pleased these strange children more than to get leave to sailboat, or to have them, or have the loan of a fishing rod, or to hear the boys call Oscar, for that was the name of the otter, out of his den, and to play with Tor the eagle, or to see them feed Oscar with some of the fish they had caught, and Tor with a bit of meat. The dogs were so friendly, too, that they never touched Oscar, but would swim about in the same pool with him, and so all were happy in the green island, because Dark-Eye had taught him that what a wicked thing selfishness was, and that the only way to be happy was by thinking about others as well as themselves, and becoming like him, the elder brother of us all, who pleased not himself. He also used to say, "Now, when you work, work like men, and when you play, play like boys. Be hearty at both." And so, while there was no idleness, there was abundance of recreation. Another evil was never permitted on the island, and that was disobedience to parents, or want of respect to the old. But indeed, punishment for these offences was seldom needed. The young learned to like to do what was right, and were too brave and manly to give up pain and trouble to others by forcing them to find fault or punish. I should have mentioned also that they had a little band of musicians. One beat the drum, a few played the fife, and others some simple instrument, while almost all could sing tolerably well in parts. Thus many a traveller would pause and listen with delight as he heard, on a summer's evening, the chorus sung from many voices, or the music from the band coming from the island. Young people, Dark-Eye used to say, have much wealth and happiness given to them, for themselves and others, if they only use their gifts. But I am forgetting Philip and Wolf. They were both, you may be sure, ready for their dinner, and there was laid for them on a table cream cakes and fresh trout, and such other good things as the kind woman could get ready. But now the thread began to move, as if it wished Philip to move also. Before rising to depart, he told Wolf how Dark-Eye, for his sake, would be so glad to take care of him until he got his father's permission to bring him into the castle, and then he would learn to be a good huntsman, and be taught what was good, and to know about the voice that spoke in his heart, and that all the boys in the island would make him their friend if he did what was right. "Malden will come here," said Wolf, hanging his head. "I wish the rascal did," said Dark-Eye, for he would never go back. But he cannot enter my fort, and knows me and my huntsman too well ever to try it. I have had more than one brush with the villain, and we hope soon to drive him and his brood from their bloody nest. Wolf, you are welcome and safe for Philip's sake." Then, turning to Philip, he said, "I shall teach him and make a man of him, my young prince, depend upon it. And now, before we part, I have to ask a favour," continued Dark-Eye. "You know, for our custom near evening, if the thread permits, remain and be one of us." "I remember it," said Philip, "and I will remain and be one of you, and let poor Wolf also be one." And so they entered the cottage, and all sat round an open window, which looked out upon the beautiful lake, with its wooded islands, and surrounded by the noble forest, above which rose giant peaks and precipices. The water was calm as glass, and reflected every brilliant colour from rock and tree, and most of all from the golden clouds which already began to gather in the west. Dark-Eye read from the good book, of one who had left his father's house, and went to a far country where he would fain have satisfied his hunger from the husks which the swine did eat, and could not, but who at last returned home after having suffered from his disobedience. When he closed the book, all stood up and sung these words with sweet and happy voices. Father, from thy house above, bless our lowly home below. Jesus, shepherd, in thy love, guard thy flock from every flow. Thine we are, for thou hast made us shine. Thine, for we're redeemed by thee. Thine, for thou hast ever led us. Thine we evermore shall be. May we love thee, may we fear thee, may thy will not ours be done. Never leave us till we're near thee in the home where all are one. Then they knelt down, and Dark-Eye spoke to God in the name of them all, thanking him for his goodness, and telling them him their wants. When they rose from their knees, the gold thread shone brilliantly, and, like a beam of light, passed out at the door in the direction of the fairy. During the singing of the verses, Wolf seemed for the first time to quite overcome. He bent his head and covered his face with his hands. He then said in a low voice, when the short service was over, as if speaking to himself, while all were silent listening to him, I had a dream, long, long ago, a carriage, a lady. She was on her knees, with her hands clasped and speaking to the sky. She had hold of me. Malden was there, and the robbers. I forgot the rest. He rose and looked out of the window, gazing vacantly. What can he mean? Asked Philip, aside to Dark-Eye, who was looking tenderly on Wolf. Ah, who knows? Poor boy, singing always touches the heart of these wanderers. Perhaps, yes, it may be, he said, so that Philip alone could hear him, that he had been taken when a child by Malden from some rich traveller, and perhaps his mother was killed. He may have been the child of good people. Was that person his mother who, he says, prayed for him? If so, her prayers are now answered. For her boy will be delivered. Poor Wolf. Wolf, my boy, said Dark-Eye, come and bid farewell to your friend. Wolf started as from a dream, and came to Philip. Farewell, my kind Wolf, and I hope to see you some day in my father's house. The herd spoke not a word, but wiped his eyes with the back of his rough hand. Cheer up, Wolf, for you will be happy and good. You'll be good and happy here. Wolf is happy already, and he will take care of the pigs or do anything for you all. He then held out his stick to Philip, and said, Take it, keep it for my sake. It is all Wolf has to give. Malden has the gold coin. Thank you, good Wolf, but you will require it, and I need nothing to remember you. Don't be angry, Philip, for what I did to you in the forest when we first met. My heart is sorry. We did not know one another then, Wolf, and I shall never forget that it is to you I owe my escape. Wolf loves you and every one here. I am sure you do, Wolf, and I love you. God bless you, Wolf. I must go. Farewell. And thus they parted, but all gathered round Philip, and accompanied him to the boat, blessing the little prince and wishing him a peaceful and happy journey. Philip thanked them with so many smiles and tender words. Dark-Eye alone went with him into the boat, and wondering greatly at the thread, and most of all at the prince, who shone with a beauty that seemed not of this world. The prince landed, but Dark-Eye knew, for many reasons, that he could not accompany him in this journey, which he must take alone. Philip embraced Dark-Eye, and waving his hand to all on the island, he was soon lost to their sight in the great forest. A winding pathway over the ridge of the hills led down to a broad and rapid but smooth river, and on its banks was a royal boat, splendid and rich to look upon. She was white as snow, with a purple seat at the end, covered by a canopy that gleamed with golden tassels and many gems. The thread led into the boat, and though no one was there, Philip entered and sat on a purple cushion on which the gold thread also laid itself down. No sooner had he gone on board of the boat than, as if his little foot, when it touched her, had sent her from shore, she slowly moved into the center of the channel, and was carried downwards by the current. On she swept on the bosom of that clear stream, and between shores adorned with all that could delight the eye, rocks and trees and flowers, with here and there foaming waterfalls. From mountain rivulets which poured into themselves into the great river, the woods were full of song, and birds with splendid plumage flashed amidst the foliage like rainbow hues amidst the clouds. Philip knew not whither he was being carried, but his heart was sunshine and peace. On and on he swept with the winding stream, until at last, darting under a dark archway of rock, and then emerging into light, the boat grounded on a shore of pure white sand, while the thread rose and led him to the land. No sooner had he stepped on shore and ascended the green bank, than he found himself at the end of a long, broad avenue of splendid old trees, whose tops met overhead. The far off of the avenue was closed by a great marble staircase, which ascended to a magnificent castle. He saw grand flights of stairs leading from one stately terrace to another, with marble statues, clear gushing fountains, and flower gardens, and every kind of lovely tree. It was his father's castle at last! He ran on with breathless anxiety and joy. He soon reached a large gate, and seemed to be covered with glittering gold. As he looked at it, he saw the thread tied to a golden knocker upon it, shaped like an old cross in the forest. Inscribed over the gate were the words, "He that persevereth to the end shall be saved." He seized the knocker, and the moment it fell, the thread broke and vanished like a flash of light. A crash of music was then heard. The door opened, and there, in the midst of all the court paved with marble of purest white, and on a golden throne, sat Philip's father, surrounded by his brothers and sisters. The beautiful lady was there too, and many, many more to welcome Philip. His father clasped him to his heart and said, "My son was lost, but is found. Tell me, my son, of the travels and trials, and how it happened that you found your way." "Oh, father, it was a most difficult journey. It all started at the great celebration. While chasing the largest stag I had ever did see, I lost all sense of direction, not only of east and west, but of the wise counsel and direction that you have given me from my youth. The golden thread was firmly clenched in my hand when I released my bow. The exhilarating excitement that the chase brings overshadowed any fear of consequence. The stag, with my arrow lodged in its side, ran with unusual swiftness, as if it did not feel the torment of my most accurate aim. There was only one thought that entered my mind that day, and that was my determination not to be beaten by this beast of the forest. I would be the victor at all cost. Soon, however, the forest began to close in upon me. My horse became agitated at the darkness and denseness of the forest, and tried to persuade me to turn back, but I continued on foot, and would not lose this contest of wit and strength. It was not long, however, that I sensed the danger that lay before me, as the strangling darkness closed upon me. Fear rushed through my veins as I realized the golden thread was nowhere to be found. I searched frantically for its golden glow, but it was hidden to my eyes. It was then that lesson I would never forget began. There were 3 tests given to me during my journey. The first was a test of love for the truth. If I had kept my identity from the wicked king, I was promised safety and ease for the rest of my life. Though the wicked king was an austere and fearless man, the words of truth came forth from my mouth with commanding power and conviction. Even at the threat of life, I learned that the truth is what really sets one free. The second test was a love for others, especially when they don't deserve your love. It was during this test that I came upon a savage-looking boy who attempted to strike and steal from me. He knew no better, for he had no mother or father, only the evil one's influence. Taking pity upon him, I extended mercy, and gave him a coin. It was the first he had ever seen. While imprisoned that same night, having only the promise of death, this barbarian youth helped me to escape. The writings of the sacred book became very real to me that night, for blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. The last test was a test of faith. Severe trials and temptations awaited me as I set my face toward home. There was a ferocious beast, flooding waters and deceiving maidens, an abyss that no man could cross, and a cliff that none could climb. All of these were conquered by faith. My faith in the golden thread, which led me through all my fears. Even when I went astray, the golden thread was not far from the cries of a pure heart. Father, it was love, truth, mercy, and faith that led me all this way. Yes, my son, indeed. You have begun to learn the lessons of the golden thread. May they lodge in your heart and dispel all fears during times of darkness and uncertainty. At this saying, the king lifted his hand to the citizens and said, Long live Prince Philip, and may mercy and truth follow him all the days of his life. For where mercy and truth abide, faith and love are sure to follow. My son, in the sacred book, it teaches that a threefold cord cannot be easily broken. The king, with a smile, looked upon his citizens, and then his son, and said, But a fourfold cord will never be broken. Learn the lesson of the golden thread, truth, mercy, faith, and love. Hold on to these, and you will never fail. While all crowded around Philip to bid him welcome, with his weary feet and torn dress held together by a leather band, a chorus was heard singing, Home where the weary rest, come where the good are blessed, home of the soul. Glorious the race when run, glorious the prize when won, glorious the goal. Then there rose a swell of many young voices singing, Oh, be joyful, let every voice sing. Welcome, brothers, our brother, the son of the king. His wanderings are past, to his father he's come. Young Philip, our darling, we welcome thee home. Oh, blessed is the true one who follows the path, holding fast to his faith, slaying the giants of Gath. Who, when tempted, is firm, who in danger is grave. Who, forgetting himself, will a lost brother save. Mercy and hope had led him to find that lost souls are precious, regardless of kind. As we come to the end of our journey of love, God has a message for those from above. Be joyful and true, young traveler, here, as your God will bless you and keep you near. The end. For if these things be in you and abound, they make you that you shall be neither barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. Wherefore give diligence, for if you do these things, you shall never fall.